if I want you to take just one thing with you from this video, it would be using the instant or momentous consumption meter continuously. If you Hi everybody, welcome to Road of Plenty. I am Thomas. In this episode I'd like to talk a little bit how to save fuel. Now you might have different objectives on why you want to save fuel, whether it's from environmental concern or if it's from wanting to save money or both. Anyway, in these times when the fuel is pretty high, fuel price is rather high, it's a good idea, you know. And what do I have to say about it? Well, other than being a bus driver for 7 years, I also, since I took my driver's license when I was 18, I'm now 47, so I've almost had a driver's license for 30 years. I've always been very focused on driving fuel efficiently. So on what you can do always is to check that your tire pressure is okay. You can check it on your if you have a modern car with a tire pressure monitoring system, or you can check it at your gas station. Well, a lot of people are driving with too low tire pressure. I follow what it says in the user manual, which is always a good tool for anything in the car. If you have any questions about your car, just look in the user manual. Most things are written in the user manual. Anyway, now I know for a fact that my tire pressure monitoring system is quite accurate, because I've checked it against all the pumps. But now I see that although the tire pressure is more or less what my manual says it should be for unladen conditions, so to speak, I usually go for a little bit higher because the higher your tire pressure, actually the less roll resistance you're going to have. So I'm going to save a little bit by pumping up, not much. I will go up to maybe 2.6 and 2.8. Okay, let's see. Car. Now it usually takes a little while for the tire pressure monitoring to update. But the most important thing you can do to save fuel is to actually get to know your car. Now, getting to know your car, with that I mean knowing when it actually is consuming and when it's not consuming so much. So you can see now the Teslas, they think they save they save nature by buying electric cars, but instead they drive like lunatics, all of them. Yeah, now you can see the tire pressure monitoring system has adjusted to 2.6 front, 2.8 in the rear. Now, how do you get to know your car? Well, most cars, the only one I know for a fact which I've heard don't have it is Ferrari, but most cars have some kind of instant consumption. If they don't have instant consumption, at least they have average consumption. Now the instant consumption is really where you can know how your fuel is consuming. You can see now when I accelerate, you can see the bar, the white bar by the blue field down there. When I let go of the gas now, you can see that the consumption is going down. It's now 4 liters per 100 kilometers. I try to keep as high speed as possible through this roundabout, so I don't lose all the speed, all the momentum that I build up. But as you can see, when I accelerate now, I'm only maybe using 1/5 of the gas pedal, and still the fuel consumption while I am accelerating is now it's 20 liters per 100 kilometers, 15 liters per 100 kilometer. So it's slowly going down, but you can see every time you accelerate, the fuel consumption is really going up. So obviously trying not to accelerate basically standing still is the most effective way of saving fuel. Now we need to use the car, we need to go somewhere, so that's not possible. Anyway, this is a really good tool, and it's actually the only way that you can really get to know your car, how much it is consuming at different driving conditions. Now you can see the fuel consumption went down to 0. I don't have any consumption. It's because the car started to engine brake. Basically, it went down on a gear and started engine braking. The most important thing to save fuel, in my book, is to avoid braking. The less you brake, the less consumption you will have. I know it doesn't provide for a particularly sporty drive, but this is not about driving fast. This is about driving efficiently, and when you are driving efficiently, you're usually getting pretty good average speed, because you don't have to go down to the lower speeds that often. An SUV like this, like most cars are nowadays, they are not so good on the highways, on the motorways, because they have pretty high wind resistance. So when you get up to a certain speed, you're going to find that your fuel consumption, now I'm 120 kilometers an hour, you can see that the fuel consumption is just around 1 liter per 100 kilometers. It's difficult to see the differences, because you always have these going up and down. But when you study this for a long time, if you always have this instant consumption meter active on your display, you can see whatever you do. Now I'm on 110, and now you can see that already now, so even going uphill, the fuel consumption is slightly lower. It's like 1 liter less per 100 kilometer than it was in 120. If you go up to 130, you're going to see an even bigger difference. So now I'm up to 130. It's going downhill now, so you cannot really say what I'm meaning, but in general, you can see that the fuel consumption is all of a sudden, on average, it's a lot higher than than what it was when I was driving in 110. It goes without saying, everybody understands this, but what everybody might not understand is how big the difference is, and how there is always like a threshold. So when the car starts consuming more, and that you need to find that threshold for your own car. The thing I really want to talk about is the use of cruise control. I know that so many tips on how to save fuel. They say that you should use the cruise control. I don't think it's saving fuel at all. I mean, if you are trigger happy, yes, it will save fuel. If you have difficulties keeping the speed, it will absolutely save fuel for you. But if you can keep the speed, whatever speed you set for yourself, without using the cruise control, and if you're not, the guy who's doing the pump gas, off and on, off and on, off and on, then you're really I don't think that you're gonna save any fuel by using the cruise control, because if you're not using cruise control, you can actually allow the car to slow down a little bit when you're going uphill, because keeping the speed when you're going uphill is gonna consume more fuel, or you can allow you can allow the speed to go up a little bit when you're going downhill, in order to gain speed for the next uphill, if you're not in cruise control. Okay, I'm approaching this climb here, and I put it up to maybe 100 kilometers an hour. I allow the speed to drop. So this time we take the same climb, same basic speed, and then I just keep this speed. I don't let it fall down, and you can see how the average consumption, or the instant consumption, is going up. It's over 22 liters per 100 kilometers. So instead of just letting the speed drop a little bit, which got it down quite a lot, I'm keeping the speed up. And you can see now I'm coming to the crest of the hill, so I can let go of the gas a little bit. But you get the point. You can save quite a lot of fuel by allowing the car's speed to drop. Sometimes it's not advisable, because you have cars, behind you and so on. But in general, this is why I think it's not particularly smart thing to use the cruise control, because the cruise control is not gonna take this into account. You know, it's just gonna keep your speed. We're going downhill now. I would allow myself to go a little bit above the speed limit. Now here, people are braking already. They are braking going downhill. So what I would do, instead of braking, I will gear down. So some cars will not have this, but on this car you will have zero consumption when you are going downhill and you are, you know, kind of engine braking. So I'm engine braking instead of braking. Now I have to brake anyway because I'm always running into the rear of this guy. Now here there's an uphill, so instead, if I drive here alone, I am maybe I allow myself to get up to 80 or 85 kilometers an hour here, and then I already have some speed in my pocket that I can lose going up. So as you can see, one thing that is completely devastating for fuel economy is hard accelerations, and in this case you can see the momentous or instant consumption actually went up to above 30 liters per 100 kilometers, so basically you cannot even see what the consumption was. One thing which is constantly bashed in all, you know, by especially car YouTubers, is the start and stop function. Now, I agree, the start and stop function is quite often too aggressive. It kicks in too early, but the car doesn't really know when you're going to stand for a long time or if you're just going to stand for a few seconds. So I usually deactivate the function when I start, before I get to the first junction or whatever, and then if I get to stop like this, where I think I'm going to stand for more than, I don't know, 20 seconds, or that number is a little bit taken out of the blue, but anyway, then I activate it before I get to the stop. You need a certain amount of fuel to recharge the electricity you took out of the battery, right? So I think depending on where you live and how many, I mean, if there's some kind of default setting, I think most of the times, actually, unless you live in a city where you're actually standing a long time and it stops, you should have it turned off. If you don't want to fiddle with turning it on and off, you should have it turned off all the time. If you live in a city where you have a lot of stops where you're standing for a minute or so regularly, then I think if you just want to have one default, it should be have it turned on, then this start and stop function. But it depends a lot on how you drive, where you're driving, etc. I agree, it's not really pleasant when you come to a junction and you just stop for a second and then start again. It doesn't make sense for the engine to turn off. It's just going to be bad for safety and for the environment, actually. In this case here, I come to a stop. I don't really know. I think I will not stand for that long. But you can see the guy with the rollator there, or the woman, she hasn't started walking yet. So there will be another half a minute. So I will actually let the car stop now. So maybe that was about 20 seconds. It's I remember our Fiat Panda, it said in the user manual that if you expect to stand still for more than 40 seconds, it makes sense to have, for the car to turn off. But I watched another video by Engineer and Explain, I think, and then there was this 7 second or whatever limit. So maybe it's somewhere in between, I don't know. Some automatic cars have a coasting function, which allows the car to freewheel while idling, which is same thing as clutching in when you have a manual car, basically. On this car, the freewheeling function will activate when I'm in the A mode, which is like the advanced efficiency fuel saving mode. Now on hybrid cars, it makes a lot of sense to coast, because when you start coasting, the engine turns off. But on a car that is not a hybrid car, the engine will keep running keep all the systems going. So therefore I would argue that in most cases freewheeling is won't save any fuel compared to engine braking, which on modern cars will normally cut the fuel supply entirely, basically. The only time that I see that freewheeling really save you fuel is that when you're going downhill in just that, like a slope that is just enough angle on that you would basically keep your speed, or whatever desired speed you have. I mean, when you're letting go of the gas, then the engine will not engine brake, it will keep the same speed, and then you have a little bit of fuel consumption, but it's very low. So going downhill, usually the speed will increase even if you're engine braking, if it's downhill enough, so to speak. With that being said, coasting actually provides for a very comfortable and lofty ride that sometimes actually would promote efficient driving, because you will become a more relaxed driver and drive less aggressively. Westfield. Now, if you do a lot of start-stop traffic, you can see how high the consumption is. If you're driving a lot of like this in parking garages and so on, same thing. This will also happen when you're in stop-and-go traffic jams. You will never get a good fuel consumption. So if you do a lot of driving like this, or if you have two cars, then you could have one electric car and one maybe diesel or petrol car for longer drives, because this is so inefficient to be driving slowly. It's unbelievable. So I know this might be controversial and not the most popular thing to say amongst car enthusiasts, but the best way of saving fuel is actually not to use the car at all. Now, if you have a car, chances are that you might need to use it. However, depending on how and where you live, you might not have to use it all the time or as often. Personally, I have a rule to not use the car if I'm not going far enough for the engine to come up to working temperature. Result in another cold start, which is really not good for fuel consumption. The cold starts, it's not good for the engine either. It's quite nice, and really nice. These short drives with a cold engine on an internal combustion engine car is not really satisfying anyway. So for me, it's like a win-win not to use the car in those situations. If I want you to take just one thing with you from this video, it would be using the instant or momentous consumption meter continuously. If you do that, no matter if you like any of my other tips, that will make you understand when the car is consuming a lot of fuel, and then you can adjust your driving accordingly if you want to save fuel. Okay, thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments, please be kind and leave them in the comments below.